Okay, we're live. Hey, everybody. Okay, it's the Antrea show. Cal is here, and Ricardo's here, and Trevor's here. So can you introduce yourself, please? And say hi to everybody. Hi, everybody. Why don't you go first, Cal, since you've never been on the show before?
Oh, well, my name is Cal, obviously. I work for Microsoft. I do a lot of the Kubernetes containers, networking, Linux for Microsoft. I'm also I contribute to Kubernetes significantly, especially the networking piece.
Dual
And
stack services. He did the dual stack services.
yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Don't be shy. Cal is a superstar. He did the whole dual stack services thing. Well, he worked with a lot of people on it, but he was the main driver of it. So awesome. What about you, Trevor?
Yeah, hey everybody. My name is Trevor Spires. I am a load balancing and ingress specialist here at VMware, focused on the AVI and AKO solution. So I don't have any feats of strength like Cal to show off as far as contribution goes, but I can speak about AVI and AKO a little bit anyway.
Pear's here. Cool. And Pear's here too. No, Trevor, I think, Trevor, I've seen some of your other, you've done a few live streams that I've seen that were, I think, pretty educational in the past. So I'm trying to convince Trevor to maybe help me host the show. What do you all think? You think Trevor should, why don't we see if he has fun today? And if everybody's really nice to him, I might get a co-host. So be really nice to Trevor. Don't make fun of him when he tries to show us stuff. And then Per Peterson is here. He's a new member of the KPNG community. He's friends with some of the folks from Cologne. So it's good. Everybody's showing up. Hi, June Jen. June Jen's here. Steve Sloka is here. Steve, if you want to talk about anything Contour, just let me know. Like, I can patch you in or whatever. Or if not, if you want to just put some links in the show notes, you could do that too. We'd love to get some Contour news today. And so, Ricardo, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hey, so I'm Ricardo. I work at VMware as well. I am not from the modern application team or networking team as Jay or Trevor. I'm just doing some other downstream stuff. But on my spare time, I help some folks maintaining Ingress and Nginx. And usually I break more things than I fix them. But that's the story of my life.
Yeah, so Ricardo went and fell on the Nginx grenade, and he's going to tell us all about that. So like, what you're like how many people are maintaining Nginx Ingress nowadays, Ricardo? Like, if I go to it, who all's working on
it? So we've got a lot of contributors on tests. I was one of them when Alejandro was maintaining that, and Alejandro is a really nice person. I talk a lot with him. And when he decided to step down, we tried to make a community around Ingress and Nginx because it's an important project for Kubernetes. It was the first Ingress controller. So we assembled a community. We have today two maintainers which have some approval permissions, which is me and James. We've got a lot of folks from a lot of areas. Like, we have Carlos Panato, which is from SIG Release, helping us with Helm charts, and Elvin. Elvin is also one of the maintainers with approval permission. He wrote the whole dynamic configuration in Nginx with OpenResty. We've got Jintao, Long, Noah, a lot of folks working on a bunch of areas. So one thing that we've tried to actually together is people not only willing to contribute with coding, because not everybody knows how to develop in Go, but also people that knows the operational issues of Ingress and Nginx. So we have people working on the documentation, people working on the health charts. I would say that we usually weekly we have something like 10 to 12 people in our weekly meetings. Also, we've got some people from F5, from Nginx Enterprise, to helping us on some issues as well. I would say that we have concrete 10%.
Steve says just use Contour. So, okay. So what?
Yeah, I do as well. Not an upstream, but that's something that pays my bills, right?
I have a question for you both. Any of you started using the Gateway API? Have you tried the Alpha 2? I think Alpha 2 was out like a few weeks back.
Yeah.
Have you tried to work with it?
So I know that Steve made a demo of Gateway API in Contour in one of the TJK. Was really cool. We are not working with Gateway API as well because we've been in Ingress and Nginx because we've been stuck in all of the CVEs that you probably saw on the past, right? So we've been mostly doing some firefighting, but Jintal actually started working on the Gateway API layer in Ingress and Nginx. So we are mostly, our idea is to, while we are trying to split Ingress and Nginx, the control plane, the data plane, we want to change the control plane in a way that it can talk Gateway API or it can talk Ingress objects. So it would be easier. Yeah, so Steve is telling that Contour already have Gateway API support, and it's pretty nice.
Yeah. Steve is one-upping you like on every turn.
Vivek is here. Vivek is whenever I don't understand. So Vivek was just telling me, oh, here's some news. Vivek, your CNI plugins thing merged today, right? Where is it? Where's your CNI plugins thing? CNI, your Multis stuff, right? Your DHCP thing. Vivek has been jumping up and down about this. So this just merged, I think, today. It's this DHCP thing for CNI, so you can have different. I guess it enables like the telco stuff where you want to have different DHCPs on different NICs and stuff like that. So Vivek showed me that today, and he's really excited about it. Now he wants it in Tanzu. Tanzu, that's how I say it because I was born in Oklahoma. Okay, so who's next? Who's next? So okay, so Trevor, you have a short demo, and Ricardo, you've got a lot of stuff. Trevor, do you want to go first or next, or do you want to fight over it?
I don't want to fight Ricardo. He looks pretty tough. I'm happy to knock mine out quick.
You do like pull up, Max. Yeah, go
on. And yeah, on that gateway discussion, Vivek's calling it out too. I think we have. And Vivek, correct me here because I haven't seen the latest. I think we have limited support for gateway spec now. Last I checked, it was layer 4 only. So I guess we're somewhere between where Nginx is and Contour is. But I'm very excited to see where that goes. And actually, I've seen a lot of customers experimenting with it. I haven't seen anything adopted yet. But would be definitely curious to know, like, does anybody know anybody using it like in real life yet?
It's Alpha 2. So I don't think anybody will put it in production yet.
There are interesting things running in some very cutting edge production environments, I suppose.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wouldn't put it in production. That's for sure.
Not yet, at least. At least if you're not elbow deep in it, don't put it in production. My interest is actually the inverse of it. The inverse. I want to know how people are finding it. I want to know if there are any sharp edges, any something we missed. And that's what you really look for in alpha stage, right? Like, have we missed something? Have we screwed up anything? Have we, I don't know, did something incorrectly? So, yeah.
So then Alpha Site. I know who this is. It's Nishad is here. Nishad is watching. Okay. So, what's up, Nishad? So, Nishad's been fighting AWS all day. So, I'm thinking, Ricardo, Trevor, if your thing is quick, I think maybe you go first, and then Ricardo can show us some stuff. That's what I think we should do. But I bet you anything, when you try to share your screen, it won't work, and then so Ricardo will go while you try to figure that out.
It's a high probability. Let's see.
Let's give him 10 seconds to figure out how to share his screen. We can do a count. Oh, you know what we can do? We can do the StreamYard countdown. It's my favorite part of the day. Here we go.
Do you got it? I think I'm sharing.
Yeah, you're sharing. Should I add this? Okay, here we go. I can see your
oh no.
All right, I'm taking you out. Back
Awesome.
on GLB. Cool. All right.
GLB, yeah. There's just a quick thing. It's actually not the fun layer 7 data plane stuff that folks playing with Ingress probably know and love today. But something unique that we offer with AVI in our Kubernetes operators is GSLB. And so I wanted to show you all just quickly kind of what that solution looks like. Do a failover because it's fun to kill things, and also give you all a resource for anybody that like wanted to like learn more about it. I have this demo in actually a hands-on lab that we just released that I'm pointing a lot of people to. So at a high level, if you haven't worked on global load balancing before, particularly within like a Kubernetes environment, all it really is an intelligent way for us to respond to an FQDN. That way we can route users to different clusters or different IPs, if you will. So there's a number of use cases, mostly centered around like resiliency. So active, and active standby use cases.
For? What does it stand for? I got to put it in the note.
It stands for Global Server Load Balancing. That's kind of the common nomenclature for it. Some people still call it GLB, but there's a lot of different GLB providers out there too in the world. We're just one of them, and one of the few that can be consumed via a CRD in Kubernetes, which is pretty cool. So with that, I'll send the link to this lab in case anybody wanted to play with GLB or like see some of the code for how you would actually deploy this. But just to show you,
anybody can do that.
Yeah, anybody can do this. So I'm actually I'll post
put it in the show notes. This HackMD here. Can you see this HackMD? I don't know. Let me see. Maybe I didn't. I'll give it to you in the downstream Slack, Trevor.
Yeah, let me get this out of the way. I'll send out the link here shortly so other people could figure it out.
Yeah. If you check in your Slack, you can literally paste it in that HackMD. Okay, go on. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'll do that right now. So I'll do that after I get this demo. But
yeah, no rush.
Anyway, so what I've got here is actually an app where I'm resolving a DNS to a VIP in my primary cluster right now. So if I go back to this diagram, I'm resolving DNS for an app hosted in one cluster, but this cluster could be, we could have two clusters in different, AZs, and that could be the traditional sense in a cloud, or like, maybe you have a data center with different IP schemas that you consider AZs, different regions, or completely different infrastructure, right? But the point is we have two different clusters. And right now, when I do a dig or an NS lookup on this app's FQDN that I have hosting GSLB, I am getting a response of this IP, right? So, and I can, it's just serving a little AVI Networks web page. I can come in and keep refreshing it, right? But what I'd like to show you is not just that we have that, but how quickly in this instance we can fail over. I mean, this might be for maintenance. This might be if an app goes down and stops responding. So what I'll do is I have this AVI managed IP.
Question. Can I ask two questions? One of them dumb, and I don't know if the other one's dumb. What's the difference between when people do dig versus NS lookup? Like, do they do the same thing? They just look different?
They do the exact same thing. They're just DNS tools. I use dig because there's like some more granular flags that I'm familiar with, but yeah, they're just tools to troubleshoot.
Okay, so they do the same thing. And then Nishad's question: what CFELB? I don't even know what Nishad's. I don't know what you're talking about, Nishad.
CloudFront.
Yeah, CloudFront. Yeah,
okay.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, I'm not familiar with CloudFront doing this. I'm sure that they have a lot of similar ways of integrated GSLB. So yeah, that's very likely the case for sure. The difference though being CloudFront is an Amazon service where this is a service that can sit anywhere, right? So I have a customer right now I've been working with using this to run apps in Azure and AWS simultaneously. In that case, you couldn't use CloudFront or one of those solutions, right? You'd have to have something over the top of that, like a AVI as an example. So anyway, let me kill this app real quick so I can show you the failover. And I have my health checks tuned really aggressively. So if I turn this off, the failover has been taking a few seconds in my lab. Let me do a quick refresh here. So it looks like the failover happened that quickly, where I am now being routed to a totally different cluster. So if I do an NS lookup, I should see that now it's switched. Of course, it may not be so easy to see in the audience here, but I've gone from resolving for the exact same record of that previous VIP that I killed to this new IP, which again, this could represent failing over between clusters, between sites, or between cloud providers. And all that's automated too. That's what's great is actually the way it's consumed is just via a selector that you put on a pod. So if I put GSLB as a selector on a pod and I'm catching that in the configuration, you can scale those up and down, deploy additional clusters, and have the service provided across them, which is pretty cool. Not really ingress, but it's certainly an important traffic control mechanism that can add some resiliency to your environment. And you could leverage this if you're using AVI as your ingress, or really any LB or ingress we're compatible with there. So,
all right. So we haven't talked about Azure. What does Azure do for this, Cal?
Just a hosting environment. So
do you do so Amazon last week, I think we said, I don't know if we talked about global load balancers in Amazon, but I think
it's pretty standard now, Jay. Every cloud has a global load balancing of some sort.
So every cloud has them natively now.
Sorry?
So every cloud just has them. It's like part of the API now.
Yeah. And also every cloud does it slightly different, but it falls down two buckets, either a DNS lookup like the one Trevor just described, or an Anycast IP. The difference is DNS, which relies on client cache and stuff like that. And we all know the difference between glibc and Muscle and Linux kernel. Everyone has its own opinion about how DNS should work. Anycast IP usually is better especially when you don't want to rely on DNS. Both options will give you the end result that you just looked at. Just they operate differently, and everyone has a sharp edge of some sort.
Yeah.
So
I would highlight, the big. I have a lot of customers that go down that Anycast path, which works well. All that is you have one IP advertised in a bunch of different places on the internet. And I think Google load balancers, that's like their default setting as an example. But sometimes you might want for like a little more granular control over the failover other than just IP.
Yeah.
So DNS can become really useful there because we can make it more selective, right?
Yeah.
Based on where the request is coming from, we can respond with different IPs. And of course, that's not limited to AVI, right? Amazon uses Route 53. I think they even have I believe Lambda does something like this now as well. So it exists across cloud providers for sure. I like
Azure had that. I thought they didn't have it yet, and that AWS did, and Azure had something else. But maybe I'm totally wrong.
Azure has a limited, So I mean, all you can actually do GSLB with like Active Directory DNS. All you need is two records.
Windows.
With
talking about Windows.
Dude. Come on.
Yeah.
Just
I like when
doesn't mean you should do
On Azure,
it.
you just
Come
use
on.
Directory.
I like when someone gets called like those reactions. Like you shouldn't be doing that.
No, you shouldn't.
No, and don't get me wrong. In the history of bad ideas, I have plenty, and I have done my own share, right? But it just just because it works doesn't mean you should use it, right? That's something that I've always tell people. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I think my point was a basic quote unquote GSLB is just a DNS record that resolves to two different IPs, and so pretty much anything can round robin that. That's out there, but would not recommend using Windows DNS for GSLB for sure.
No, definitely not ADS. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe we'll be able to get the Azure folks to do a whole thing about how that stuff works one of these days. Okay, so Matt's getting hot. Okay, so now Ricardo, it's your turn. It's your turn to tell us.
My turn.
Tell us the story.
So
tell us about Log4j.
Log4j. I don't think I can talk anything about Log4j. But anyway, sorry. I think that besides Log4j, we've been fighting. The first thing that I think is that we've been seeing a lot of people ranting about CVEs lately those days, and forgetting that the majority of the maintainers, they are not paid for that, right? So I've seen some folks telling, hey, you should not be using Java because Log4j. And I mean, if somehow something appears in Go, I don't think it would, but if something appears in Go the same way, like in log rules or in Cobra, people shouldn't be talking about that way. But I won't say nothing about Log4j. I think that maybe you want to talk about the recent CVEs in Nginx, right, Jay? You are just looking into that.
I actually want to make an interesting point here.
Go ahead.
So I've been watching people reaction to this, and some people were, let's just say, less than polite with the reflection on the bug and the issue and so on. The issue is big. The issue is not small. Nobody's denying that, right? But somehow when you find somebody complaining and saying, hey, oh, this bad thing, that's bad design and bad whatever, and bad whatever, and bad whatever, and bad whatever, begs that really interesting question. Why are you using it if it's that bad? I'm serious, right? One of the things that I always tell people about open source, and don't get me wrong, open source is one of my favorite things, right? To be engaged in, as like the code, the community, and everything. One of the things people don't realize is the fact that you're using open source, irrespective of the licensing discussion, because that's not a discussion I'm qualified to have. The idea is, yes, you delegated somehow the build and test and compile to somebody else, right? Somebody else like Jay built a thing and I'm using it. That does not relieve you from the responsibility of understanding it and reading about it and understanding how it works, right? You especially if you're using it in a critical component in your system. So if you're complaining about Java or I don't like Java, don't get me wrong. I'm not a Java person, right? I have my own set of problems with it. But Java is a good language, right? The fact that I don't like it does not mean it's not good. It's just the fact that you use Java and then you stop and complain, then one of two things: either you change the tool you're using, or you just help improving it by just sitting down and even contributing to the people. And one of the things that's really interesting is the people who built Log4j came out. The first thing they did is we did not like this feature. We had it for backward compatibility. Because if you come and ask anybody like me between keeping a bad feature on or breaking compatibility, will always say keep the bad feature because we don't want people to recompile and rebuild their stuff against our stuff. We go through this discussion almost every time we think about Kubernetes, like the API flag, every field. But we have to think this way, like just because a bad feature or something that was, and you see the issues, right? Something that was badly implemented, does this mean we just break everybody and everybody now, screw you, go rebuild your stuff? That doesn't work. That's not how the way works. So yes, upset, but use your energy to contribute back. That's basically what I'm saying.
I agree with that. Yeah.
You can use. Do people still use SLF4j? Because that was what I thought was the solution a long time ago. Is make it so you don't have to. So you're not tied to any particular logger.
But I think that the point that matters, what Carl is saying, is that someone decided to use that, right? Because that was the right library. And you are delegating all of the maintenance, all of the security audit to the open source community. So regardless of if you are using SLA4j or Log4j, or if you are using system.out.print something, you are still relying on someone to maintain that. right? So and instead of just keep complaining about that, people should be taking a better look into the security or making some contributions. So people asked me like, hey, why someone uses Log4j? I don't know. I am not a Java developer, but usually I use something in Kubernetes, in Go, for example, because I'm too lazy to develop my own, and I trust that, right? So if some vulnerability appears, I shouldn't be like just ranting about the developers, the maintainers over the internet, and maybe helping them to fix that, or maybe following closer. Because the thing with Log4j, for example, you have a lot of banks, a lot of companies that have like $1 billion or more, and they don't put any money on that, for example.
So,
right. So,
well, I have a question about the Nginx ones. I agree with both of you. Be nice, but I have a question. How many of the Nginx CVEs are actual Nginx ones versus Nginx Ingress ones? And then I have the same question for the Contour folks if they're watching. So how many of the Contour CVEs that we've seen have been because of Envoy versus because of Contour itself? If Steve is still here.
Yeah, so first of all, in case of Nginx, usually they split, right? So we've got a bad Nginx vulnerability, a bad CVE with resolvers back in time. I guess it's like 6 or 7 months old. And the patch was like, hey, you need to update your Nginx from 119 to 120 or apply this patch. So this is not an Ingress Nginx vulnerability, because that's not the way that Ingress Nginx uses Nginx, but that's like a vulnerability from Nginx itself. It's the same thing as you say, hey, like my JBoss got this specific CVE because it uses Log4j inside the framework.
Do you get controller CVEs, or are they all Nginx ones? That's the question.
No, so we've got controller CVEs, and and the controller CVEs, they are related actually to how Ingress controller deals with the way that users they add informations. So as an example, in Nginx by itself, it doesn't have a CVE related to remote code execution on a specific place. Okay. And Lua doesn't have that as well. But the way that we implemented that in Ingress Nginx allows some folks to, in an annotation, put some directive of Lua that can allow people to read Kubernetes secrets, right? So if you look into the core reason is the way that we implemented that. That's not the way that Nginx implemented things, or the way that that's available in OpenResty, for example. This is the way that we are not sanitizing users' input. We are not blocking users of use dangerous directives from OpenResty. So this is an Ingress controller vulnerability. That's not an Nginx or an OpenResty one. Got it?
Yeah, exactly. That makes sense. Yeah, definitely. That makes sense. Okay. So, and then Steve is saying he can jump on. Steve, definitely. I gave you the link if you want to jump on. I'd love for you to explain some. So Steve introduced 2 Contour CVEs, and I guess he said he can explain them. So what's the most recent one, Ricardo? What's the most recent one that you all had to patch on the Ingress side?
Yeah. So the most recent one is still that one that we've been dealing with, but we've got some diverse some other problems from that CV that weren't patched, and we are still patching, and it's gonna probably be announced, but there is some discussion on that, right?
Yeah, go on.
Because, for example, we assumed that the problem was specifically with a kind of annotation, when actually we weren't doing the proper sanitization in some annotation, in all of the annotations, right? Okay. So we've got that's not yet.
Where this is, Ricardo? So where is this? So can I see the?
There is an issue. There is an issue with the CVE, and probably that's related. If you look into CVE on the issues.
Okay.
CJ from Google opened that. Yeah. CVE. I can't see your screen, Jay.
Oh,
No,
you
this is, yeah. Go to the bottom. Come on, Jay.
I'm going.
Yeah, that's the one. Investigate something. No, sorry. Yeah, this one. This October 21st. Yeah. So this is the CVE, right? The original CVE that allows people to use one annotation that we have in Ingress is called snippet configurations that allows
It's like a
people
SQL
to.
injection attack, sort of.
Sorry.
It's like a injection attack.
Yeah, exactly. It allows actually users to add some random directives that get dropped into Nginx configuration, and we were not sanitizing that. So people were abusing that, for example, to use OpenResty directives to read a container, like read the container secret that connects into the Kubernetes API. That does have a lot of secrets and a lot of stuff because all of the TLS teams, they are on Kubernetes API, right? So that one was the first. And then when this one was disclosure, people figured out that they could try to abuse other annotations to say, hey, what if I try to add these into this annotation that takes headers, for example, when instead of headers, I want to escape and use something else. So this one is still, we already patched it in a sense of saying, hey, you now can sanitize all of your annotations, but we are still working on that because the way that Ingress works and the amount of access that Ingress has to Kubernetes API today is it's dangerous to keep both of those things together, right? Having the data plane and the control plane running on the same container.
You can see every pod's IP. You can see every service. You can see everything. Yeah.
You can see everything. Yeah.
Okay.
The thing is that one thing that was being discussed is how much you wanna add, how much power you wanna add.
Look at this beautiful reply you wrote. You said hi. This is so polite.
I am polite, Jay.
Yeah.
I am not a cutting maintainer. I'm an Ingress Nginx maintainer.
Okay. Say, go on. Say, finish what you're saying.
Yeah, no, that's one of the discussions that we've been making is like when you add, when you give your users permission to create things in Kubernetes, you must be aware that those things, they may be dangerous. Like you are giving users permissions to add arbitrary code that may break things, right? Yeah. So someone came to me and say, hey, if you have multi-layer Ingress, you are probably in a bad shit. And I said, yeah, but this is the way that multi-platform, this is the way that multi-tenancy clusters works, right? I want to create a namespace. I want to give my namespace access to Steve, and I want to say, hey, Steve, I trust you, and I trust my system that's not going to allow you to put any arbitrary code here. And that's not what was happening.
Let's give this namespace access to Steve because he's got something to show us too, right? What have you got?
Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
Can you share your screen? So this is really cool, Ricardo. Thanks for showing me this. I didn't understand how this CVE worked, but now I kind of understand.
Sure. You want me to demo something?
I can't see your screen, Steve. You want me to just drive, or you want to share it?
No. What do you want? You want me to talk about the CVEs, or?
Yeah.
Yeah. Go to that link I sent in the chat. The contour.
You sent something to me?
Well, it's in the YouTube chat.
It's an issue in Contour. I can
just go to Contour's site. Yeah.
Okay.
And go to security on the right. There's two security. There's a tab on the top.
Oh, there's a tab for it.
Yeah.
Well, that's fancy. So this is a thing? Everybody has that?
I think so. You can go to advisories, the second one down. Yeah. So here are the two that we published. So when you publish it through GitHub, you get like CVs written for you and everything. So the first one was the external name services. So Contour lets you, when you create an Ingress resource, you reference a service in Kubernetes, and typically that's a regular service which has pods behind it. But you can also have that be backed by an external name service, which lets you input any kind of DNS name, right? So say you wanted to have, a route that hits, your site and have it route out to a different server somewhere else outside of Kubernetes or something. So the problem here is that you could actually make your external name service localhost. And what we were doing is we were exposing Envoy's admin webpage over localhost only to kind of like hide it from the world. But the problem with that is that if you made an external name service of localhost, then you could then get, Envoy would route to localhost and it would expose that admin webpage to anybody who configured it.
Oh, that's a good trick.
Yeah, so it was only there if someone could set it up that way, but in theory someone could do that. So
good. Thank you, Josh Farrell.
Yeah, so Josh, I think he joined VMware, and a few weeks later he found this or something. It was really, early in his time here at VMware. But anyway, yeah, so it was kind of a clever hack to get access to it. There's a second one too, which is related to Kubernetes itself, to where you can get access to cross namespace services as well. So if you enter your external name service and call it service name.namespace.cluster.local, you can get break out of your namespace into somebody else's namespace and potentially access their service or expose it. If they didn't want that, you could still do that.
Okay,
that was the first one.
That's this one, Ingress data plane.
And that's the one on the left. The external name is the one I'm talking about. That one is the one we just discussed. Yeah. So what we did was we mitigated this by we got rid of all. So the Envoy admin page has things where you can kill Envoy, you can reset stats, you can do all kinds of kind of like destructive things. You can shut it down, so we got rid of all of those endpoints that were basically write. So we actually wrote a static rule in Envoy to say, hey, expose the admin things over localhost, but just expose the read-only ones like clusters, endpoints, that sort of thing. And then the other ones, and then instead of having it being mounted over HTTP,
so I'm over here.
Yeah.
I'm over here and I'm accessing this through the API server. And so what you did is you changed it so that Envoy, which is over here, you changed this daemon set so that it doesn't allow you to access the Envoy API through localhost.
Well, you still can. It's just what we did was we moved it from an HTTP server to a Unix socket.
Okay, so I can't access it through.
And then through that socket, we exposed the read-only interfaces, so you could still get debug information, because we use it a lot to like debug stuff. Like, hey, go show me your configuration, or show me your clusters, or show me your routes or something that are set up in Envoy. So we can still have those, but the ones that were destructive, like shutting down Envoy and resetting.
Should you all look at each other's CVEs? So Ricardo, Contour gets a CVE. Since they're also an Ingress controller and you're an Ingress controller, do you all look at each other's CVEs and you're like, oh, you do the same thing I do. I wonder if ours has the same problem.
Yeah. So one of the CVEs in the past. Yeah. One of the.
Okay.
Sorry, Jay.
Yeah, go.
One of the CVEs that we've got on past was really similar to this one in Envoy, right? Was like users could create a service with an external name and then point to a specific Ingress Nginx that runs inside the controller that's responsible to maintaining the backend tables for the OpenResty. So when that thing came out, actually, that one specifically didn't generate a CVE, but later we've got a vulnerability that I guess Rob Scott or someone actually saw that that could allow users to use an external name to bypass Ingress, right? Ingress controller and go directly to the backends. And back in that time, so the Kubernetes security response team actually pinged. They pinged all of the Ingress maintainers, and I think Steve was on that list as well. And they said, hey, you should probably take a look into that. So before the CVE got announced, we all started looking into a way to disable external names or to filter that the external names, right? So when it's something related to the Kubernetes API and that's reported via the Kubernetes API, usually all of the Ingress maintainers, at least the majority of them, they got warned. So when I got this warning, I warned the folks from AVI here inside at VMware as well, because I remember that they weren't on the list, right? So we try to, but that's not something easy to keep. A fun thing actually is that the Contour maintainers, the Ingress Nginx maintainer, one of them, and the HA proxy maintainer, Ingress maintainer, they all work at VMware, right? So the HA proxy Ingress maintainer, the community one, also works at my team. So at least we have this kind of contact, but we don't have this CV experience like exchanging. We should have, yeah.
Okay, but they do have. You do share a similar like. There's some like okay. So but there's some. So what do people use external name for in general? Is it for it? Oh, I know what you use it for. You use it for
S3 buckets.
Yeah, like buckets. You use it in MinIO, right? So
I don't. No. I don't use that in MinIO, but I've seen people. But that's similar too. So I've been seeing it can be used that way. So
I think I saw this just yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah, people usually use that for S3 buckets, for example, or so for some external web services that they need to connect, like they have their own pod running inside the namespace and they want to use Kubernetes. They want to use Kubernetes services instead of like keep changing things in the code. They can just call like my web services dot my namespace dot svc dot cluster dot local and then use the external name to solve to that.
Yeah. It's a workaround for when you've got like a headless service, but you want to have a name that routes to it. So wait, when I hit an external name, what's the data path that I follow? Do I go, when I hit an external name, is it just, yeah.
It creates a CNAME on core DNS.
Okay.
Or whatever DNS you are using, but it reconciles and it creates like an alias domain. So when you call that, it returns to you a CNAME. Like if you put like google.com as your external name, it's gonna say, hey, when you call jservices.namespace.svc cluster local, I will return to you a CNAME to google.com, for example.
Okay. All right. So when I make an external name, this then just when I make one, it just creates a CNAME in core DNS. Okay, cool. Core, oh gosh, I can't draw Ricardo. CNAME. Okay. So okay, cool. And then, so the only purpose of this external name is to plumb records into core DNS, really? Because I guess you don't really need any actual kube proxy integration for this because you're not proxying into the cluster. It seems like this field is really weird to me. Like in general, it's a strange field. Why do we even have a field that only changes core DNS? Like, is there any other machinery that has to behave differently because of that?
Yeah, so I'm not sure. If you ask me like my personal opinion, I would rely mostly on a CRD to do that instead of putting that inside service. And I think that we have some lack of like a DNS as a service based on CRDs using core DNS, right? Yeah. But I'm not sure. I don't know the history of that. Maybe we should dig into like the implementation in Kubernetes code and see who implemented that and why.
I know Sadef is better at drawing this. Scott's making fun of me because Sadef did better diagrams last time, but Ricardo didn't come. Ricardo never comes. He finally came this time, Scott. So he doesn't know how good Sadef is at drawing.
You should watch the past recordings.
Now Ricardo has a Christmas homework assignment.
Yeah.
So, okay.
My Christmas homework assignment is splitting the control plane and the data plane in Ingress.
Oh, yeah, you're going to Kapingify it.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah. So Ricardo, why don't you tell him about that idea? I love that idea. So tell him about this idea, and meanwhile, I'll use it as a way to show them some Kaping stuff. So we've talked about Kaping on the show before, which splits the control plane out from the data plane and the kube proxy. But you're talking about doing the same thing for Ingress controllers, right? I guess we don't call them that anymore. We call them gateway controllers, right?
Yeah, something like that. We are still an Ingress controller because we don't implement the gateway API yet. But yeah, so one thing that we've been discussing in Kaping meetings past, I guess Per actually brought that idea as well, is how we should probably be using that idea of having something that that deals with all of the Kubernetes objects and then generates whatever the data planes expect, right? So in copying, if you have a service, you will generate something that will be applied as an NF tables or as an IP tables or something like that. And while I was discussing with the community, the Ingress Nginx community about that, we've been thinking like, hey, why instead of suffering with gateway API implementation, we don't think about implementing something that can deal with all of the Ingress or gateway API objects and then generates whatever the data plane can use. So this could be used by Nginx, or this could be used by HA proxy, or this could be used by Contour or whatever, right? So that idea didn't.
Gateway controller, sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Because on the data plane, by the end of the day, all of those proxies, which they are like Envoy or Nginx or HA proxy, they just expect some structure with front end and back ends and the configurations of those, right? And the certificates.
Okay.
So and that's the same for all of them, right?
So the input to these is what now? Say that again.
They all expect the same thing. If you are dealing with layer 7 HTTP routing, they expect a front end and they expect a back end, the back end servers, the pod IPs, right?
Yeah.
And they just expect that structure. So I can show you, for example, the structure that we get in Ingress Nginx here. Let me just move to terminal to editor area, and I can show you. Yeah, sure.
Okay, cool.
So
I'll just draw a little happy face for everybody to just keep them entertained while you do that. I'm just going to draw.
I just expect this.
Do you want me to draw a picture for you? Tell me. We'll play a little drawing game right now.
Is this screen 1 or is this screen 2? This is screen 2. The screen, try capturing a different screen. I hate this thing. Let me see if moving my... Okay, Jay, I've got the same problem with Mac that doesn't allow me to share my screen.
Okay.
But yeah, anyway, let me see if I jump in with Google Chrome here, I can do that. Hold on.
Ricardo, look at this picture. This is a cool picture. Look how cool this picture is.
Hold up.
Can make
I will put everything.
You take your time. I'm just drawing over here. I'm drawing a little Christmas man.
I can't see how this is done.
Here you go.
Don't put me on screen yet.
All right. So there's 2 of you now.
Okay, cool. So let me share my screen over here. Let me see if this one works.
I'm trying to prove to Scott.
Share screen.
Okay.
Okay. Share screen.
You're gonna bring it. Oh, I see it. Okay, you're here. Here you go. Okay.
Yeah. Cool. So this is an example of like a gRPC server that I am running in Ingress Nginx that fetches the final. Sorry.
Can you zoom in a little bit?
I don't know.
That's good. Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Beautiful. Okay.
So this is like I am doing some implementation over like a gRPC client server that fetches the whole configuration, the data structure from Nginx, right? So if I run this, I can see all of my. I got a data structure which is composed basically by a bunch of front ends and a bunch of back ends, right? So this is mostly what every Ingress expects, right? So I have this, if I have the certificate errors and the host name and all of the locations and what I have in the backend locations and also the pod IPs of those backend locations, right? So the same way, all of the proxies they expect this sort of configuration, right?
So specific to InfluxDB in there. What is that all about?
That's a configuration that we've got in Ingress Nginx that allows you to add the metrics in Influx.
It's for an Nginx implementation detail. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Go on. All right.
But that's something specific from this front end, right? This is like a bunch of bytes that I can open that. I can just marshal them, right? The thing is that if you take a look into this, I have like my front end defined here with this host name, and then I have the locations defined here and what I should do with those locations. So in this case, for example, if I have, let me see if I can find the path here. Where are the locations? Okay, if this is a default backend, if not, so I have this path here, and it says that this path should be directed to a specific backend A or backend B, for example, right? And also I got all of the IPs the same way we do in copying, getting the endpoints.
Yeah.
So every like HA proxy is configured the same way. The end of HA proxy is like you have a front end that defines a MEFKDN or something like that, and then you have all of the backends that answers for those front ends, and void the same. So I was asking people, hey, why don't we try to make like a common controller that generates a common data structure, and then via gRPC, the same way we do with copying, we just have a bunch of backends that can sync that, right? That idea actually didn't got some traction because I think that all of the implementations, they got specific things. So we saw in FluxDB, I have mod security probably, and Void doesn't have that. But that got some idea for us to maybe to decouple, at least in Ingress in Nginx, the control plane and the data plane. So that's what we've been doing right now. So Nginx is going to run on a non-privileged controller, on a privileged container, and I may have like just one control plane or like a few of them targeting Kubernetes API server, and all of the data planes just fetching, just gathering the information from that control plane, which may, as it's gRPC, we may also have like a load balancer in front of that, which is a complaint that we've got to go ahead.
This is your security footprint now, right? Because now there's only one thing that has to talk to the API server, and nothing right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so you create this little wall.
And we solve another problem that we've been seeing in Kubernetes SIG network meetings on the past few meetings, which is people complaining about the high availability of API server, right?
Yeah.
Because in this case, I will have like my control plane with gRPC and the running configuration, and that control plane I can replicate it to a lot of containers, right? So I may have like 3, 4, 5 control planes fetching that information and then providing to the data plane the structure that it needs to configure the proxy.
Yeah, so this happens all the time. So now they're doing this in the Calico world. I know Junjin is here. Junjin, is there any work being done on the Antrea side to decouple the control plane and I guess like, do we cache anything on the Antrea side to do like Typha style behavior? Like could you separate your agents, like if you wanted to? I don't know if Junjin's still here though. So Scott's saying actually Contour is kind of already doing that. I guess they kind of baked it in, but it's not generic, right, Scott? So I think that's kind of the way that, but yeah, Contour kind of has everything cleanly separated. So does every Nginx Ingress node talk to the API server right now, Ricardo?
Right now, yeah.
Okay.
Every container talks with it.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I spoke with Steve, and we started to discuss about the approach that Contour has to that same model. I just didn't got enough time, and as I do all of those things during weekend, I didn't want it to bother like Steve with stuff on weekends.
Maybe you could actually build a Contour to Nginx adapter, right? Where you
I would say that if I wanna keep my job, probably I wanna build an Ingress to Contour adapter, right? An Nginx to Contour adapter.
Oh yeah. The other way around. Okay. All right, this is good. I mean, I think you've taken enough time to hang out with us today, and I know you're really busy, so thanks for coming to hang out with us, Ricardo. This is really cool.
Yeah, sure.
I wanted to say that Ricardo deserves a shout out for the fact that he sort of joined this relatively like nobody wanted to work on it project and sort of took a lot of ownership of it. And I think that's really cool because most of us try to join the hot new project like me. Like I was like, I'm going to just go do Kaping because like, so it's really cool to see folks like jumping into these old projects that need help.
Let's be fair.
Yeah.
You joined Windows as well. No one wanted to join Windows.
That's true. Actually, I get more points than you. So, okay.
Exactly.
All right, cool. All right, so Kubernetes on Windows. All right, so does anybody have anything else they want to talk about before we leave? I see there's a lot of people still hanging out. Unfortunately, we end at 1 hour. We don't go too long on this show. So if anybody wants to talk about anything else, we've got Ricardo here. If anybody's got any Nginx or Contour or AVI questions or whatever, or Antrea questions. Going once.
Yeah, thank you all. Thanks for inviting me, Jay.
Are you going to?
What's fun?
It's happy hour. Next week it's going to be a real happy hour. So hopefully, Ricardo, you'll come happy hour with me.
I think I will be around. Yeah.
All right. Bye, everybody. Thanks, Matt. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for coming and hanging out. Okay.
See you, folks.
See you. Thanks, Ricardo.
Have a nice.